Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Breaking Barriers webinar about women in finance. I'm Jessica. I know I'm not Liz, and it's surprising to see someone else leading a UTL event, but I promise I'm officially a part of UTL and have been so authorized by Liz to do this. Um, Today we are joined by Anne-Marie Wallace of the Women's Business Center of Utah and Jacki Zehner, founder of ShePlace and SheMoney. And so I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves and tell them a little bit about themselves, and then we'll jump right in.
I'm muted, so I'll go first. I'm Anne-Marie Wallace. I'm the state director of the Women's Business Center of Utah, like Jessica had mentioned. I myself personally, I grew up on a dairy farm in northern Utah, so small beginnings, but I didn't realize how entrepreneurial that was. My dad didn't work for anybody else; he worked for himself, and grew up that way. A lot of hard work, and the things that I'm grateful for now didn't really appreciate back then. Um, but I run the Women's Business Center of Utah, which is a 25-year-old organization, nonprofit that's funded in part by the SBA and hosted by the Salt Lake Chamber. So that's been the scenario since 1997. And our services include advising one-on-one and also group training, live and virtual, as well as online self-paced e-learning. So our services are meant for, well, they're meant for entrepreneurs, but they're women specific, so women focused. And our mission is to help women to create their own opportunities, to experience success in business ownership, and most importantly, to build confidence. So those are the main things that we do. We're advocates for women business owners in Utah specifically. We have two SBA grants, and that's the border of Utah is as far as we're able to go. But we have been able to serve 27 of our 29 counties in the last 3 years. So that's basically what we are. We'll talk a lot more about it, but that's me, Anne-Marie Wallace with the Women's Business Center of Utah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacki Zehner. I am joining you from Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. And I loved how you said that, Anne-Marie. I didn't grow up on a farm, but I never really think about this part of my identity, but I am an orchardist in the summer mainly. Actually, I'm going to hold up probably the biggest apple you've ever seen in your life because I have a very big head, and this is a very big apple. It's our Honeycrisp, which we're harvesting right now. I'm going to put it back on the shelf. So I've been up here all summer. So I'm the founder of ShePlace and SheMoney, and Madison Lemansky is also joining us on the call today. If you see her name, she's the COO and so much more. With a partner of mine as we created this. So we have really two parts. I think the SheMoney side is more relevant to what we're talking about today, but ShePlace is our network that we created. It's free to join. It's just a social network. We're really trying to be intentional around women supporting women and focus on building social capital. And I will post it in the chat. It's open to everyone. And we use the term Women Plus. We're designed for Women Plus, meaning those that identify as women. We're really trying to create more inclusive language and move away a little bit from the gender binary. I think Anne-Marie's nodding as well. And so that's been up and running. We hold tons of events, a lot of fun socials and networking events. And then we also have our sister company, which is SheMoney, which is the partnership we're going to be talking about today with Kinect Capital and the Women's Business Center. And I created this, kind of I guess officially launched just a year ago as a brand, as a separate company, but I'm a former partner and managing director at Goldman Sachs. I studied finance. I've had about a 10-year stint in philanthropy, and I'm just ridiculously, insanely passionate about women's financial engagement and agency. And what I noticed, and I've been writing about women in money for almost 20 years. I'll post LinkedIn. We have a newsletter that has about, 160,000 direct subscribers. And we write at the intersection of women, money, and power. And we're bringing all of that to Utah and to a national platform that we're just rolling out. Very excited to be partnering with these amazing women here in Utah to really advance and support women's economic agency and wellness right here in our great state of Utah, with the big aspirational kick-ass goal alongside everyone I'm sure on this call to make Utah the best state in the country for women to work, live, and thrive. And that's SheMoney.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I can speak for Utah Tech Leads as a woman found and owned organization that we are very grateful for the work that both SheMoney and ShePlace have done and the Women's Business Center have done. I don't think we would be where we are without the work that you guys have done in the state. And so I think my first question is, what inspired you guys to create your respective programs or go down the path that you have?
I'll go. As I mentioned, we've been around since 1997, but I did not found the organization. It was a private partnership between the federal government and a nonprofit, which is the Sully Chamber. And but I have been here for half that time. So I worked for the Women's Business Center of Utah for about 13 years. And one thing that I really appreciate about the requirements we have, but also the autonomy we have with our host organization is I've been able to take the organization to new places. That's very entrepreneurial. So what we've been able to do since I started as a director, which was in 2013, so a whole decade ago, was to go statewide and online. That's something that our center hadn't really been doing before. It's a requirement. We have a lot of federal requirements, but the thinking about how do we serve women who don't live in those 4 counties along I-15 when our mission was meant to be carried towards all of the rural areas. And as I mentioned, I grew up on a dairy farm, so I'm not from the Wasatch Front. I was from a very small town, 200 people growing up in Cache Valley, so that's a very small area. So my heart has always been with our small communities. So that's something that I've been really leading and partnering with our chambers of commerce throughout the entire state, mainly in rural areas, but also making sure that we're available and accessible online for anyone. So those are some of the small things that have been kind of my mark on the Women's Business Center of Utah.
Thank you, Anne Marie. And so what inspired me? I think I said it in the intro a little bit. I've been thinking about money, obsessing about money, like in the world of money since I started college in really 1984. So for a heck of a long time. And I'm just, as someone who's been very fortunate, I didn't come from, a high net worth background or anything like that, very modest upbringing. I'm a first generation college student. So I feel like I found my way into the world of capital markets and finance, and as mentioned at Goldman Sachs, and almost by luck and circumstance, when you think about, how long ago that was. And, I'm now almost 60, and, over the course of the past, 30 something years, and was very much involved in recruiting women into financial services sector at Goldman, and then bigger initiatives and the whole world of gender lens investing, which is how do you put your investment capital to work, with a gender lens, with intentionality of what's the impact on women. I've always noticed, like, where a lot of the time, where are the women, and why, being curious about why they're not necessarily as involved, especially on the investment side of the equation. And the nonprofit that I was involved with for many years was Women Moving Millions, which is a global network to encourage women to give to organizations that support women and girls. And over all of this, and being a writer and being curious, it's what I think about, it's what I read about. There was always some unanswered questions to me around, what are some of the barriers to this financial engagement and agency? And of course, being a data geek, on the other side of that, we know less than 2% of venture capital flows to women founders. So then when it comes to women and money, it's just not balanced, in terms of the systems that are perhaps the decision-making systems. So the flow of capital is not coming towards women. And oppositely, women are increasingly holding a lot of capital, whether earning more or investing, and yet you're not seeing sort of the impact of that necessarily in terms of how that's shifting financial systems. So that's really the origin story behind SheMoney, because no matter if women had a little to invest and a little money and just starting out, in their careers, or literally billionaires, women billionaires, they were asking the same questions and showing up with different pots of money. And so that's a big reason why we started SheMoney, less because, and we're interested in sort of the personal finance aspect, but we want to create sort of a bigger movement around, like we talked about, sort of the engagement piece, the agency piece, the community piece when it comes to women and money. And that's really our motivation. So we're just getting started and we have a lot of things we're going to do, but the idea of anchoring it in Utah with the power of proximity and combining money and education and engagement with community in a local way, just I don't think has really been done before. So we're excited about doing it right here in Utah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, SheMoney has been, I think, really instrumental in trying to start conversations, even just about that piece of women not being as connected. And to T and to Tara over here, sorry that we went ahead and started without you, but if you want to introduce yourself, Tara, and where you're from, what you do, that would be fantastic.
Oh, thanks, Jessica, and I apologize for running late. Uh, my name is Tara Spalding. I'm the interim CEO for Kinect Capital. Kinect Capital is a 501c3 that focuses on educating, mentoring, and providing access to capital for entrepreneurs. We are a very strong women entrepreneur advocate here in the state of Utah. We started a program called We Rock. Sounds like a song, but it's actually an acronym that's for women entrepreneurs realizing opportunities for capital. Similar to what Anne-Marie and Jacki have stated earlier, the biggest barrier for growth of business is getting the right sort of funding. And in particular, it's been hindering the women entrepreneurs here in the state of Utah. Sadly, many of them have the perception that they're not worthy of getting capital or they don't know how to get capital. So there's a perception and education aspect that certainly needs to be addressed. Tailing on to what Jacki said, we do believe it's a community effort, because if you can't see it, then how can you be it? And additionally, there are capital providers out there who embrace women entrepreneurs, not only because they know of the social impact, but women entrepreneurs are also known to double the returns compared to their male counterparts. Usually men bring 17 cents on the dollar, women 34, baby. So it makes a lot of financial sense for financial backers or capital providers to back women entrepreneurs. And as Anne-Marie said, you know, it's awesome to get women to create businesses. We're very creative, we're passionate, we're problem solvers. We are women epitomize bootstrapping, yet love to see the state take it one more step further and make them scalable. Jacki mentioned a very important aspect, which is there's a ubiquitous knowledge and sharing that women have, regardless if they have $100 or $100 million to their name. And so what we do for We Rock, again, is the education, mentoring, as well as the pitch and the networking events to pull it all together.
Yeah, thank you so much for introducing yourself, Tara, and no worries about being late. It's I get it. We're good.
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday. It's a day. It's a day. What to tee off that a little bit too as well, what would you say was your biggest inspiration for getting involved in creating Kinect Capital? You've already kind of touched on it a little bit. Were there any specific moments or people that really just kind of set you on the path that you're on?
Yeah, actually, I did not start Kinect Capital, nor We Rock. Kinect Capital was actually founded in 1983 as Utah's first education venture endeavor, but set as a nonprofit. We Rock started 7 years ago, and I was actually in the audience as an entrepreneur, listening to different capital providers. And I think Anne-Marie was sitting very close to me, listening to 4 courageous women get on stage and pitch for capital, which was just amazing, because hearing women pitch and fundraising 7 years ago was just groundbreaking. And that's when I knew I needed to become a part of the Kinect Capital nonprofit, is to put forth further efforts and endeavors to help women entrepreneurs. So my passion is really around igniting conversations into action. And so by running the We Rock program, what's lovely is not only giving these women courage to go up and directly ask for money and have a very solid and justifiable as well as inspiring story to tell to attract the right investors and banks to support them. But then more importantly, and we just hosted our annual conference a couple of weeks ago, I get these follow-up notes of like, Tara, I am now pitching at these local angel investment groups. Oh my gosh. Or I'm speaking to a couple of private equity groups because Kinect Capital had me on stage at We Rock. And it's opening those sorts of doors. It's up to the women entrepreneurs to close the deal. But for us as We Rock and as Kinect Capital to create amplification as on their stellar business and investment opportunities, that to me ignites my passion.
Yeah, and I think it's really incredible to see these women like finding their power and using it. And I think all three of your organizations have done a great job of helping women find those sources. And like you said, it's up to them to close the deal, but just having the door opened for them, just even just a little bit, can make a world of difference for these women and their businesses. So
Jessica,
moving
can
on
I
to
just
my
add to
next,
that for a minute?
yeah, absolutely.
I'll post it in the chat, but as mentioned, like I sometimes think we women, like we resource each other to death, like, which is, I love resources. That could be on a t-shirt for me. Like, I love resources. So I think that's true for me. And there's sort of the systems change that we need to, and that's the power of community behind all of this. And obviously the work Utah Tech Leads is doing to really advocate for funding at all levels, for nonprofit funding. Like, women are over half the population. We disproportionately have the need because of systemic barriers that have existed for all of human history. So showing up together, the power of which we did, and we'll probably talk about with the legislature, to say, we want to create, partnership and collaborative change. We're doing this together. But on the resource side, I think, and that's another motivation behind SheMoney, and obviously two organizations are listed, but I'll post in the chat because we did have an event where we created these resource guides and very Utah specific. So I'll post it in the chat, but thanks to these amazing partners, we just put together some real Utah-based resources as well as national ones as it relates to entrepreneurship, whether you're just starting a business and are single proprietor to, all the way up to wanting to get venture capital funding. And one of the biggest questions to ask around that is, what kind of capital is right for your business? And we really tried to answer that question. So I'll post that resource, love, hate resource in the chat for everybody if that's something that's interesting for them.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Jackie. I'm sure that that'll be a very nice resource for everyone to have. And thank you for bringing that up. Let's see. So you guys have already kind of gone over what your programs do, but what do you wish people, or like women specifically, knew about the programs that you run? Or what do you like? Is there anything specifically that you want to highlight about your organization that you think needs to be a little more out there, a little more known?
I'll go if that's all right. For our organization, we are a technical assistance center, and I know that many of our partners do provide the same thing or similar things, but we are hand-holding support. So we're helping women from the very moment that they have an idea all the way up to those who, are needing venture capital. Our team is actually statewide as well, and that's definitely new. So probably just in the last 3 years, we have more of our team members living off the Wasatch Front than on. Our advisors live in Salt Lake City, Moab, and in Vernal. And we also, as part of our training, developed cohorts, and that's our own curriculum. For the first time in 25 years, we started during the pandemic our own curriculum. And I know that many, like, Tara has her own as well as Jacki. But those programs always include a financial aspect, because it may not be the flashiest, it may not be the most sexy thing to talk about, but it's so critical to business. You won't have a business without making sure that you understand your finances and that they're secure before you even try to ask for other money or other funding. In our cohorts, they include like a peer weekly lesson, mastermind groups, and those mastermind groups are led by the members of it. We also ask women business owners to do project assignments that are actually working on their own businesses, and that includes cash flow projections and break-even analysis, financial analysis on their own businesses. So they begin to understand the whole concept of financial management and how this actually works. The break-even point is a spreadsheet. They're all spreadsheets actually. And that one is really critical because they can see if they're going to make money based on the scenario that they have in mind. And then they can tweak things. What if I could get that, expense a little bit lower? What if I should charge just a little bit more, what that does to the bottom line? And we also host a directory. And that's really important as a public directory. It's meant for the community, Utah neighborhoods, individuals who want to buy women owned to know which businesses are women owned. It's free for any woman business owner. The business has to be woman owned and operated, not just owned, but operated and controlled by women or one woman. And it's at utahwomenowned.com. And, we encourage organizations, especially those who have diversity goals for their contracting, like your large corporations, like Kroger or Smiths or whatever, they do have contracting goals. So we help with them identifying which businesses that they can buy from. And specifically with funding, and maybe we can talk about this in a minute, but we've also been a part of some grant competitions where we've taught women how to pitch for a little bit of money. The same concepts are true for larger amounts, but they're a lot more sophisticated as far as the people that you're going to be pitching for. But we've also been a hub for Kiva. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of Kiva, but that's pretty much free micro lending. So when we mentioned, I think Jacki mentioned like the capital ladder, not everything fits for everybody, and you got to start somewhere. So Kiva is basically a crowdfunding model through a nonprofit that is a little bit of money. So it's $1,000 to $15,000 and you pay it back without interest, but you have to help raise the money through like online platforms. But then micro lending, you've got your banks, and then you have your angel investing, your venture capital. All those things help you in different ways to substantially grow your businesses. And I think the most important thing for our organization is that we're helping women understand and have a grasp of their finances so that they can take advantage of opportunities and be able to actually ask for money that they don't already have access to. And I think the main thing is that they're profitable, but also that they're meaningful to the person and to the world.
Yeah, exactly, Anne Marie. That was well said. And I think it's about education and access and trying to make sure that women know and understand what their options are before just diving in head first with not enough information. But Jacki and Tara, what are your thoughts, feelings, opinions?
Well, I think I'll go next. I think the question is, what is it like? What do people don't know about us that we would want them to know about us? Because we want to change the history of the world. That's what I want everyone to know about us. And we're going to start it right here in Utah, because who would have thought that would have happened? Even though I'm in BC. And I think what's unique about sort of SheMoney, and I think it's also our big challenge with SheMoney, is that we're pulling the lens way the heck back when it comes to women and money. And we've created a framework that's sort of anchored around this concept of financial wellness, meaning, your financial wellness is not just a spoke and one might see your wellness wheel. Like you have work, you have family, relationships, environment, spiritual, money. Well, yes, money is a piece, but it's also at the center because our relationship with money, our history with money, our beliefs, our limiting beliefs oftentimes can all affect all of those areas. And of course, the more money we have the saying, money doesn't solve all of life's challenges or problems, but it can almost always help. And that's, kind of a no-brainer. You have more resources. You can buy a gym membership. You can take vacation. You can get acupuncture. You can put your kid through college and not have that stress. So I think what's hard about wrapping your head around SheMoney, and it's hard for us to think about how we program around this, is pulling the lens way back and say, oh, there are a lot of resources, a lot of organizations. If you're a woman entrepreneur, if you have venture capital, if you're this, but where do you go to start way the heck back. And I'll give you an example, which is, I think some people might have attended it. And I'll post it in the chat, but we discovered, thanks to Sui Lang Pinoki of Zion's, which is a big partner of ours, a woman who created a curriculum and program called The Trauma of Money. And it's a 17-week certification program that I'm going to. When I jumped onto the website and learned about it, my head almost exploded. And I immediately signed up for the course because I'd never heard that language before. And you're going to start to see it now that I've said it. But if you Google it, you can almost find nothing. And this course and the pedagogy around it, and we brought her 2 weeks ago to do a workshop, and we'll bring her back again to Utah, is, really sort of stretching back to think about all these issues that might affect how you engage with your financial resources, your willingness to show up, that are both self-oriented, might be intergenerational, systemic, meaning what are the messages women receive from our culture about money. And I think that's our sweet spot, but it also feels like we're carving new ground a little bit, which makes it sort of challenging for folks and us, to say, what is the next step around this? But what I'd love for people to know is that we're really serious about wanting to change the world, starting in Utah. And I fundamentally believe, as someone who's been around the block, and especially around the block in the philanthropy space for a long time, is that if we can fundamentally shift this question of self-engagement and community and roll it out to a local level, a state level, a national level, a global level, these things that might be barriers to that engagement, I think the world will change so much faster, because it will mean that nonprofits like Kinect Capital and the Women's Business Center get more money to do their programs. It will mean that more women entrepreneurs get funding. It will mean we shop more intentionally and align our values with our purchasing power. So, it's pretty darn exciting. And I feel like the more people that know about us, we're having a big event next year, the bigger our platform gets, the more we can amplify out that message, have the resources to do the amazing partnerships and programming. And, that's kind of my hope and dream.
For Kinect Capital, there are 2 resources that I'd love to share and emphasize, because I think it can bring tremendous value to this group. The first is, if you are an entrepreneur you're approaching a scalable moment that you need outside capital, absolutely come to our education and to our mentoring programs. They're free. And it's a wonderful opportunity to not only get resources. I would actually put that secondary. The biggest value out of participating in these education and mentoring programs are meeting other people who have done it. And they're donating their time and value because they believe in the future of growth here in the state, just like us 3 ladies do. And so you can get tens of thousands of dollars of advisory for absolutely free by participating in our, in-person education, as well as our online mentoring programs. Some of them take a couple hours, some of them take 10 weeks. So it's depending on where you are, what you're ready to commit to. So that's huge. The second program that I want to shed light to, we just completed our very first round, and both Anne-Marie and Jacki were huge supporters. And I see one of our students here, which is Maddie Leminski. We just completed education on angel investment for women entrepreneurs. The audience of this was beautiful. There were people who wanted to learn about angel investment, who are about to angel invest, or who have angel invested and want to improve their angel investment approach. We have both men and women in the audience, and I'm not talking like the solo guy. It was pretty amazing on the male and female participation, because they were advocating, and we did all of our case studies and all of our examples on women entrepreneurs. fundraising through equity instruments versus debt instruments. And it brought such a strong community together over the course of, I think there were 9 meetings over 12 weeks or 11 weeks, if I can recall correctly. And then additionally, SheMoney hosted a pitch reception room where Jacki and her team were listening to pitches without interrupting the pitches. It was a separate room, so it wasn't distracting. But then anybody who was interested in like understanding like what an angel investor is looking for when they hear a pitch, feedback, etc., and just to be there for conversations about angel investing, Jacki hosted an open room while pitches were going on to have conversations in a non-distracting but very inclusive format for those who are interested in angel investing. And so that's how we all work together about owning the money, owning our power, just starting to change the narrative as to what we ourselves can do if we're accredited or unaccredited investors. If we have $100 that we want to put through a Reg CF or a crowdfunding, excuse me for using acronyms, platform, or if we want to do $100 in a women-owned business, right, to writing a $25,000 check, like there's or invest into a fund that backs women entrepreneurs, right? The combination of our 3 organizations just really return the power back to the individual and allow us to look at just basically cash flow in a totally different perspective. So those are my 2 programs.
Thank you so much, Tara. And I'll probably ask you to drop some of the information in the chat so that we can make sure to post that so all of our attendees here can check out those resources. But my next thing is, why are these programs necessary now? Like, why do you think this has become something that we're doing as of 2023? And what is I mean, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but just like really digging into like, why now?
If we're going to stay in order, maybe I'll go first. My thought is, why not now? It's never too late to start something. And if we're just kind of fed up with or done with how it's been done in the past, then now is the time. For our organization, we were here before the pandemic, and the pandemic sure shook the tree, and businesses fell out, and those that were able to make it through, and some of them still haven't been able to thrive since then, there's an increasing need for them to be able to at least wrap their head around how to run a business, and also how to grow that business through opportunities. And you can't do that without money. I mean, there's only so much you can do to grow your business without investing or infusing some sort of capital into it to do more. And to me, doing more good in the world, whether it's in your community or in across the state, the nation, the whole globe, because what women can provide is different than what men will come up with. And there are, half the population of the whole world are women. So there's a lot of opportunity. And like Jacki had mentioned earlier too, that there is interest and support for that. It's increasing for women's initiatives and women's entrepreneurship. We just had our annual meeting yesterday with our association, and we have a company that does our lobbying and things like that with Washington, D.C. Our Congress people vote on our funding every year. So it's important to our centers. But they were talking about how some of the programs were, up for being cut down, but not programs for women. So this is a really great time to put, press the gas, I think, to make sure that we take advantage of everything that we can and help each other to really make sure that women progress as fast as they can. And why not now? That's what my thought is.
Well, just to pick up the pass the baton thing, absolutely agree. Why not now? And, again, I don't want to be like Debbie Downer. And I'm sorry if there's someone named Debbie on the phone. Like, how did that happen? It's like being named Karen. That just is not a good, that's, thank you, Jacki, Mom. I think this world is really, again, sorry, I'm going to be a little heavy here, but it can be really bad. Like even in Kelowna, we go drive around Salt Lake. the homelessness situation, the rates of addiction and mental health things that are problematic, the cost of living where I live in Canada, it's insane. Like, it's so much more expensive than in the US. The emergency room here in my local town was closed over the weekend because they didn't have doctors. People say, oh, Canada, it's socialized medicine, all's good. It's not good. And I think there's an affordability issue. I think that a lot of the big challenges around homelessness and addiction and trauma of money course is really like sat with me on that. Like addictive behaviors are a symptom of sort of a loss of hope, a loss of connection, a loss of belonging. I'm going to shout out Brene Brown. I've been obsessively listening to Brene Brown this past couple of weeks too, and I'm just holding it out there that I want her to be the keynote at our conference. Maddie and I are setting huge intention around that. So I want everyone, maybe we can have a collective little prayer for Brene Brown to come to Utah before we close out. But I think it's a lot to do with how money and capital flows. What are the values associated? And we have a framework where we talk about the 7 money moves. So we talk about investing, of course, invest, give, spend, save, borrow, protect, and earn. So when you think of those 7 areas of which you have financial engagement around, if we create a lot more intention around it and wealth creation opportunities, because I'm a real believer, and there's a lot of research and evidence to say this is true, because women give more at every income level is an example of that. Women are more altruistic and more philanthropically inclined. And, and again, countless studies around this, when you put money in the hands of women in lower economic environments, or, I might say the global South, they're more likely to invest in their children, in education, in quality healthcare. So more money in the hands of women is such a good thing. And combine that with education and community and a sense of collective in it together, kind of making our, the next door, like knowing our neighbor, buying from the business, because I'll tell you who are the richest people in this country: hedge fund managers, people who start huge tech companies, and Amazon, shareholders. So
how about automaker CEOs?
Well, that too. There you go. So what does it take? I just challenge us all to say, what does it really take to fundamentally change this? And I think I pull it back to how we are, those 7 money moves for each and every person. And if we feel like that's not going to make a difference, or, I'm here doing this and no one else cares, then it becomes hopeless. And so the why now for me is a real state of urgency around how lives can be fundamentally shifted when what we're talking about today happens. And I'll offer one more piece of research. This is another guy we want to bring to Utah to speak. His name is Raj Chetty, and he studies the science of opportunity. So what are the conditions that create what he says to have the one generation better off than the next? What has to be present, or what can we actually measure and enhance, one might say, to increase, communities literally flourishing? And one of the biggest indicators of that are social connections. So the degree to which people of different levels of income and assets mix it up. And because that opens the doors of opportunity, you open your frame of reference in terms of what's possible. And we all know that social connections mean a lot in terms of our own lives. The only reason I became, found my way from a small town in Canada to, Goldman Sachs in New York was because of relationships and someone along the way saying, you go try that. I'll open that door for you. Have you thought about this? So I think that is very hopeful, because what it says to us is that we can take charge of our communities flourishing. And I really believe if we relied on those who have all the power, big picture power, how we frame power, all the money, all the stature, whatever, to change the world, then maybe we'd be in a bit better position than we are today. But I think we're on, the train to the shit show. Sorry for the swearing. And it really is up to us as individuals, as communities, and frankly, as women. And there, let me leave you with a quote. And this is a 1942, something like that quote. I found it. I love quotes. By Harold Goddard. He was this random dude. I think it's interesting. I wanted to like study up on why this guy wrote this quote. But he said, if ever there comes a time when women of the world come together for the good of humanity, it will be a force the world has never seen. And you can look it up, Harold Goddard quote. I'll even post it. And that has been my inspiration for a very long time. So Wonder Women of Utah, let's friggin' unite, start local, do this, Tara, Anne Marie, Maddie. I'm looking at all of you, Jessica, because change starts right here and it starts right here. Wow, I didn't know. Did I have my Wheaties this morning or what? Did I have 14 A&W lattes? I think I did, because they're only $2 right now. So I loaded up.
Well, and I don't know if I can even top that, but here's how my brain works on what we can do right now and what's happening. Everybody sees the $1 trillion in credit card debt. That debt is led by men, not by women. I just want to be clear on that. Women lead the debt when it comes to student loans. So we are educated, but we just didn't get it paid for. But when it comes to like credit card and financing, that's the guys. Women control $11 trillion in household spending in the United States as of this year. Guess what? Women are supposed to control by 2030. And there's a hint in the number I just said. We're going from 11 trillion to 30 trillion. Yes, Jacki's got it. Thank you, hon. Because of basically death and transfer of funds between families. So the boomers, the Gen Xers are going to be inheriting a whole bunch of wealth, and it's going to women versus men. So we're in a very interesting macroeconomic stance right now that, there's more women by men. I think we eked out this gender thing by like 5%. We run $11 trillion, yet we have a mentality, thought in control and access of funding. We could change this overnight. We could literally change this overnight. And it starts by looking at what we can do. And that's all I can add on to what, Jacki and Anne-Marie have said, which is just phenomenal.
Absolutely. I mean, Jacki, I think you sure did have your Wheaties today. I think you made some excellent, well-impassioned points. And I think, Tara, you're absolutely right that we do have the power to change this. We just need to get on that and get on that wagon and get on that wagon quickly. Just to kind of wrap up a little bit, are there any programs that we've kind of covered it a little bit, but is there any like programs that are entry level that we can direct people to get them started at the Women's Business Center or at SheMoney or at Kinect Capital that you think would be really beneficial in helping get us on this path to get there?
I just have one, and I don't know that it's actually better than any of what the three of us actually offer. By the way, maybe you have an idea of it. There's a lot that the three organizations of ours do to help women business owners. We hope you've got just a taste of it, but there's so much out there that can help you, and it's all free or low cost. I know SBA has a program called Ascent. I haven't gone through all the modules yet, but that is something that SBA does that we partner, but it's not ours. Just maybe worth mentioning. But I really appreciate the three organizations where it's women focused. We're looking for, to help those who are their wives, mothers, aunts, grandmothers. It's for the everyday woman who can do extraordinary things.
Well, thank you. I posted our newsletters in the chat as the best way to know about upcoming events. I think we can all obviously tag each other, support each other, shout out. There's something that, again, Chantel Chapman talks about with the trauma of money. And all this takes time, and a little bit of effort, of course, but really go out of your way to support other women. And I mean that very sincerely, whether that's, following, the organizations on social media, whether it's, on LinkedIn. Again, we created this guide called Spend, which, along with Women's Business Center of Utah, we highlight women-owned businesses and going into these businesses. And I will say, in a special shout out to women of color that are founders of businesses here, and really lean in to support women-owned and support each other. And Chantel talks about sympathetic joy and as a sort of a counter narrative to jealousy or envy. And I don't think we do that to each other anyways, but this idea of just engaging and celebrating the successes of other women and putting ourselves out there for celebration, not being timid in asking for support. One of my favorite questions and answers that I learned a little too late in life are, what do you need? And here is what I need. And if we can own those two words with force, individually and collectively, I think that in and of itself is pretty incredible. So we have a ton of events. I'll do a shout out. We have an amazing woman coming in November. Her name is Barbara Annis. She's written a number of books. She's a women's leadership guru, including the book Gender Intelligence. So she's coming in November. We have a networking and social in October, a party. And I really believe that so much of what we do is just creating social capital, meeting people, being open to meeting and others. And again, showing up with, the intention might be, I just want to connect, or I'm really I want to tell you about my business, and just create those spaces where we're boldly, talking about what we're doing, what we want to accomplish, and engaging in that reciprocity with others.
And I guess for closing, I'd love to see you at some of our upcoming events. We have investor relations coming up next month. And we have a pickleball this Friday. If you just want to smack some balls around and just watch how much of an idiot I can be, just network, get out there. Don't hold yourself back. There is no such thing as imposter syndrome. If there's a voice in your head that says it, tell it to be quiet. And just hang out with us, because we're very open and accepting, just like what Anne-Marie and Jacki said.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank all you guys so much for joining us and for sharing your perspectives on all of this. I think this was a very positive, good discussion. And if you guys would be willing to share some contact information in the chat so people could reach out to you if they have any specific questions or things they want to connect about, or just, share their joy a little bit, But I was wondering if there's any questions from the chat or our audience here that we have while we still have these three incredible women here ready to answer any of your questions.
Jessica, I just pulled a question from the chat from Sheena, who meant to post it publicly. Any thoughts if you weren't business minded, but more artistry driven? And Sheena, I invite you to share a little bit more about that question, but I will say that, if artistry means more in the creative or being an artist, I think there's a lot of challenges. Maybe you could address them in that way, but in the same way that access to capital for women-owned businesses in the artist community. We know that women are underrepresented, undercollected. I'd love to work with galleries. I've talked to a few around especially Women's History Month, to curate, especially local women artists. We feature women artists monthly in our newsletter. And that's where the power of the purse and intentional spending can come in as well. But I'd love to hear, Sheena, if you have more directed question about that, not to put you on the spot, but if you want to come off mute, feel free.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. I'm in a coffee shop. That's the artist in me. I work in coffee shop. So I'm a freelance writer. And I've started breaking into making these little kind of like docu films, just like people and connecting to real people, and storytelling is my true, passion. But I think I'm like I'm making like an hourly rate on the side, like ghost riding for people, it's been a great start. It's been a long process even getting to this point. But what I realize is that I'm like making this hourly rate using my service, and I'm not really able to, you know, put that, it's taking away my time from putting into my energy into a greater vision. And I'm also not making money very quickly. And it's also like freelance money. So it's like not giving me benefits or anything. And I'm just, so one, my rate is too low. I already know that. But there's just a lot involved in that. And I'm like, so I don't know if any of you know Sharon Noble. She introduced me to this group. I believe she's friends with someone named Stormy Hill or something. Okay. Anyways, she's like, you got to get into this group. And I was like, okay, I do basically anything she tells me. She's just really inspiring. But I'm like, I'm like, where is my place? Because I'm inspired by all that you're saying, and I definitely have tons of money trauma that I'm working through. But I'm like, I don't feel super business driven in terms of being like, I'm just gonna start creating fun, and I'm gonna create a business. I'm like, what would be that business? How would that be authentic? How can I be authentic and still, elevate myself, become a bigger entity? And I think, and for me, it's natural to give, especially once your bases are covered. You're like, the next step is like, help other people. You know what I mean? So I just, yeah, I don't even, that's some more background information. I don't know if any of you can kind of speak to that point of view or perspective.
Well, I'm just because I'm off mute. I'll just speak to that. I think your story is one I've heard before, Sheena. In some ways, I think artists, like as someone who cares a lot about folks in the arts, and our one of our women who does all our design work is Sharon Backers, who also has Zenzi and is part of the Park City Arts Council, and just an incredible advocate for, I would say entrepreneurs, like if that's a word. I think it'd be cool to have something where y'all like share your own stories and aspirations in that way. And I feel like, the freelance and the gig economy has a lot of pros and cons, which is its own thing. How do you handle aspirations and goals when you want to do the work you want to do, but also realize that doing the work you do requires support, which requires, having people buy your work and support you. So I don't know if we can take it all on in this call, but I just encourage you to join ShePlace and reach out to us. Maddie's on the call, and Sharon, because the idea of having like a let's chat sort of entrepreneurship, or doing art with integrity and making a living, and how do you hold both? And again, you referred, so I'm going to refer back to you around this trauma of money piece, which I think can be a lot, especially honestly for women that are artists. Oftentimes, women are disproportionately represented in nonprofits as well, which can have a tapped sort of sense of earning potential or upside in terms of equity. It's why we did not structure the business we're doing as a nonprofit, is one of the many reasons. So I'll just sort of offer that I reached out to you on LinkedIn already. Love to follow up when I'm back in Utah, because I think you're asking some really wonderful questions.
I love what
Okay,
Jacki said. Go ahead. Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Oh, sorry. I'll be fast, Tara. Sheena, you reminded me of the women who take our Minding My Own Business course. It's meant for solopreneurs, and it's meant to help you to be more efficient and effective with your time so that you can be more profitable. And the whole concept behind it is that you can keep the lifestyle and like your family or responsibilities that you want. And there's a section of it that we talk about scalability, about what's scalable, what's not scalable, what's a good combination, and help you go through the steps of, well, if I'm doing direct service, I can only bill for my time. But if I also incorporate some things that are more scalable, you can have a combination and, begin to increase what you earn. And also, like you're already saying, charge more. So if you're interested, that course, I think we'll court of that starting this week or next week. But we do them probably 4 times a year. So if you're interested, it's free. It's 7 weeks. So there's a commitment, but I think that might be really helpful for you. And another plug really quickly is the Women in the Money conference that's put on by the state treasurer's office. It's on the 29th, a week from Friday. What is today? Tuesday, so it's a week and a half from now. Perfect timing. You can take this out of the podcast because it's kind of dated, but I'll be presenting on how to start a side gig and has the same principles for solopreneurs. So that's a really great place to go as well. And we can talk more about that if you come to the conference. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What's the name of the first class you mentioned?
Yes, it's called Minding My Own Business.
Okay, minding my own business. Awesome. Thank
Minding
you
My
so
Own
much.
Business. Yep. I'll put the link again in the chat for you as well.
And I'll be at that conference as well.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
And then Sheena, the one thing that I was just going to add on is I wrote a book 2 years ago about the 10 preparation steps for starting a successful business. And there's a trick between doing something that you're passionate about and really just figuring out where's the demand. And if you need sort of like a step-by-step way to think about it before even endeavoring it, because maybe it's not your path. Maybe you need to work with an agency or with a co-op or with a different group. But if you're considering entrepreneurism, I would say certainly download it. It's free. It's licensed under Creative Commons. And it actually starts off with you as a person. And what skills are you great at outside of your creative aspect, which is amazing. And then also setting up very healthy safety barriers so that you don't over extend yourself pursuing entrepreneurism, so you stay safe. Unfortunately, just a couple of weeks ago, I lost a dear friend who is an entrepreneur to suicide just because it just became too much and he got into a really dark spot in a dark hole. He just didn't set up those boundaries. So take it seriously if you do pursue it, because a lot of people do intertwine entrepreneurism with their own identity, which is dangerous. And, download the book. And if you need any assistance or want to talk through, Sheena, I'm there for you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I think that was a incredible discussion, and that was a great question, Sheena, bringing up the creative side of things. And I will definitely be sending out a recap shortly with all the resources that were listed, and then a recording so you can go back through and find all those little nuggets of wisdom that were spoken in this meeting. But thank you, Anne Marie, Jacki, and Tara. We really appreciate you being here. And keep an eye out for more Utah Tech Leads events coming soon. And if you guys want to reach out to me personally, I'll drop my email in the chat as well if you have any questions about Utah Tech Leads and what we do, or Tara and Jacki and Anne Marie. They have all provided their information so you can reach out to them. But thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Oh,
Jessica, I just want to thank Utah Tech Leads. I mean, it's Sunny and Elizabeth really, I know for us, really gave us the vision about how we could partner together with these amazing organizations and seek support from the state to do the work and keep the cost of what we're doing very minimal, and make so much of what we do free. So just a huge shout out to Utah Tech Leads and Elizabeth and Sunny and you, and just thank you for the work that you're doing to really create more equitable state right here in Utah. So big thank you from my side. I see Anne Marie and Tara like nodding.
Yes, thank you.
Big shout out
Thank
to
you.
UTL, UTL, UTL.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
No more coffee for me this morning.
No, no more.